A very good morning to you, and we meet you on yet another edition of Newsline, where we keep you in the loop of all the featured stories and the stories that are debatable. And we meet Faiz Shaukat Ali and Madhul Jayasekar on yet another edition of Newsline. Well, Faiz, how have you been?
Excellent, and Joy, good morning to you. And how are you enjoying your freedom, Stephanie?
I would say freedom is good.
Excellent.
It is good.
Wonderful.
There's a reason why people fought for it.
Freedom from what? You got an apartment or what?
No. I'm with my parents, but I'm having. It's a newfound freedom. I mean,
What's real life?
Yes, we are live.
Right.
First up.
In which case?
First up, on Ceylon today we have a journalist killed by wild elephant. Now, incidentally for us, contrary to other reports, he was a U reporter, citizen journalist from Newsfirst, and he also won an Eagle Award from Polonnaruwa recently, and it's a tragic death. We featured on our news last night.
Indeed. And he was part of this network of few reporters that this network has.
That's right.
Over 20,000 people, citizen journalists.
Yes.
And this has been going on since 2012, I think.
That's right. So Ceylon today has featured the death of the journalist who was killed by wild elephants. Now, far as this has been a topic for a long time. Wild elephants, and how it should be, measures should be taken to mitigate this.
Well, you know, there's always this conflict between human, animal, this conflict is there. But we have to live with it. There are various initiatives that the Wildlife Service are obviously taking. But it is nevertheless a tragic loss, and our thoughts obviously with his family this morning.
And moving on to one of the stories that Ceylon today has featured. Interestingly enough, it has said that python found near Parliament, where maintenance labourers cleaning up the parliamentary grounds yesterday morning discovered a young 4-foot-long python enjoying a joist in the grassy expanse of the Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte Parliament complex. And just below that, they've spoken about JVP to make expose in Parliament about the avant-garde case. And moving on to the island, it says, right on as a top story, it says, Fonseca accuses AG of acting inimical to interest of government. So any comments on that, Faraz?
Well, yeah, Bandula, the AG seems to, all of a sudden, seems to be rather muddle-headed from a layman's point of view, because we had a report that KP, there's no charges, no criminal charges against KP.
That he's not even a terrorist.
Not even a terrorist.
He never brought arms, he never supported, there's nothing.
And in the words of one of our fellow, one of our colleagues here, what is going on? What's happening? Why is this KP is all of a sudden a goody-goody?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he brought arms, he used all these and made, that's where the terrorism began, because of his arms, where he roamed around. It was very difficult for Sri Lanka to nab him.
Exactly.
And he's a well-known terrorist. He's wanted by the Interpol.
Indeed. That was until recently. I'm not sure if it's still on, but until recently he was on the Interpol's red alert, which is...
even though terrorists, people can be rehabilitated, but you still, he's a terrorist, you can't say that there's no charges against him.
That's right. I mean, everywhere, especially, when there's this move with the ambience of the UN looming in the not too distant future, and they're trying to hold the Sri Lankan government at the time accountable, then when there is an opportunity to have a look at what the other side did, then I think that those opportunities must be pursued vigorously.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure LTT can say, KP can come out with a lot, and even I think there was a time where India wanted to question him.
Indeed.
And we didn't or was there, I think, some of the intelligence people came and questioned him?
No, it's also, we must go back a little bit and realize that the Malaysian government gave the Sri Lankan government a lot of assistance and help. And in that context, that is how KP was brought back to Sri Lanka. Our forces didn't go there and track him down and bundle him up and rendition him. This was done with the full knowledge of the Malaysian authorities, who obviously helped us. Now, not many people who are arrested and facing serious charges under the PTA, for example, at the time, get to have tea and cake with the Defense Secretary.
Yeah, that's true, but now, unfortunately, KP has become sort of a celebrity. All these foreign journalists go and interview him.
That's right.
This is what even this Padma Rao's book, New Sri Lanka, she has, met him. Yeah. So they say his reforms, I mean, maybe, everybody can change. Yeah. But then this is very, like puzzling to a lot of people when we read deadlines where the AG says, there's no case against KP.
And also, with KP, people say, as you say, that he's rehabilitated, but I think the average citizen Joe is likely to want him to go through a certain judicial process, and so that we could independently see if KP has been rehabilitated. Can he be rehabilitated? Not for some one person or two people to make that decision.
Yeah, and also for us, the tragedy is that unfortunately where General Fonseca, he was behind bars. He served the prisoner term. We know that, the man who, along with others, who led this, fight against terrorism. But there's nothing against KP. I think in one of the papers, General Fonseca has flashed out that
General Fonseca is accusing the Attorney General of acting inimical to the interests of the government. And
I would say the country, not the government.
Indeed, it's inimical to the aspirations and the interests of the country. You're quite right, because everybody takes great pride in being who they are. Sri Lankans, Sri Lankan first and everything else next. So General Fonseca, or as he is now, Field Marshal, is absolutely right in his interpretation, in my view, that the AG has obviously acted inimical to these interests.
How do you think this could be resolved? You could get another opinion, or what?
Well, you see, if we examine the Attorney General's rather sorry record in terms of the avant-garde matter, to start with, the avant-garde matter where providing the sea marshal service and so on was one of the main areas of revenue generation for the Sri Lankan Navy. Now, for whatever reason, that government decided to form that into a company owned by the government, and then made avant-garde almost a de facto subcontractor. And then this company begins to license the use of firearms and so on. But as Upajaya Suri pointed out last couple of weeks ago on our show, there is a strict procedure to follow under the Firearms Act when you wish to license the use of firearms. And that is because these firearms were stored on Sri Lankan territory. The Galle port, where this vessel was docked, the Mahanora, is within the territorial limits of Sri Lanka. Therefore, our laws and statutes come into play. And in normal circumstances, these matters would be referred to a state council. But the seriousness of this issue was recognized, and it was an additional state council of PC rank. I think his name was Navaratna Bandara. Mr. Navaratna Bandara had a look at it. And it was his obviously considered view that this matter should be referred to prosecution. Now, the Attorney General didn't agree with that decision, but instead of having a discussion and discussing his concerns with Mr. Navaratna Bandara, the AG referred this to three other senior members of the Attorney General's Department. And all of them, Jayanta Kapila Vaidyaratna and Sarat Jayama, all three said that there was a case to answer. And in spite of all this, the AG, together with the Solicitor General, now we have to bear in mind that both these gentlemen, however well qualified they are, their forte is not in the criminal side of things, it's on the civil side of things. And they decided to let this matter go.
But for us, don't you think, I mean, I would not say interfere, but don't you think the new Minister of Justice might have to intervene on this matter? You think he has the right?
Well,
or to get another opinion? Okay, you can't say AG's opinion is the final, yes. But you can
it's a matter that I'm not suitably qualified to answer that bit, but it's a matter that is of growing concern, and it is of great concern to the legal community, because they feel that there is a breakdown in good governance. And there's a profound belief that some people are getting away with it.
Then also you said about this avant-garde, I've spoken to very senior Navy officers who said that it was wrong to have privatized this, even though the owner of avant-garde is a former Army Commando major, but they have said that the Navy really made lots of revenue, they got a lot of revenue, and that was used for the welfare, but sending it to a private, giving to a private sector one was not welcomed by the Navy.
And the other matter to bear in mind is that when it was within the Navy operating this thing, it was the government that was responsible for all these weapons and so on. There were 3,000 weapons found on this on Manora.
But for us, nevertheless, avant-garde recruited all former Navy command, like the former Navy commander Sandagiri, then even Somatileka Disana. Yeah. They recruited all these senior naval officers.
But the thing is, Bandula, we have to bear this in mind. Internationally, the treaties give the power to governments to issue the end-user certificates. When this government has passed this responsibility on to, in essence, a private company, it doesn't matter that it is being run by former military men, the responsibility from the state has shifted to the private sector.
At that time, the Ministry of Defense took the responsibility. Maybe now things have changed, so that's why...
The way the Sea Marshal Service works is that it is the state that's responsible, because people can rent these, take these weapons on hire for the safety of the ships while they're at sea, and also the security personnel. But it doesn't always come back, and so sometimes there's a possibility that you find these weapons finding its way into the wrong hands.
Now, what would be the next step if this is the case, if AG has said that? What they do?
Well, there has to be an intense lobbying, and the Minister of Justice needs to look at this pretty sharpish, and indeed perhaps the new Secretary at the Ministry of Defense, Karmasena Hetiarachi, should be looking at this very, very carefully indeed. It's a very serious matter, and I'm not so sure that the nuances of this has been explained to the public at large. But there is no way that one can deviate from the firearms ordinance.
Yeah,
that is where it appears that the former Defense Secretary has been on some sort of solo adventure. But he needs to explain his solo adventure through a proper judicial process. And that opportunity appears for the moment to be squandered, because the AG has made this...
But I still think this is not the end, you can always refer back.
Indeed, well, we hope so. The AG has, in the state newspaper, has defended his position with a very watery statement that it was done on those famous and lovely legal words, available evidence.
So what if there are more evidence destroyed?
Well, I'm sure that the position will have to change.
Well, speaking about the same avant-garde case on CT, on Ceylon today, it's been mentioned that JVP is to make an expose in Parliament. And they've also said that they will speak about the inception of avant-garde security services company to date, and the information include names of government officials.
Well, yes, we hope that the JVP will waste no time at all in bringing this matter.
Very interesting times ahead. Well, Daily Mirror has also featured the story that says Tajuddin's phone found in Agarapathan and Aurelia. Well, yesterday a major breakthrough happened in the investigation of the killing of Ragorite Wasim Tajuddin, where the CID said that it had located his mobile phone at Agarapathan and Aurelia.
Well, yeah, the detail is that my sources tell me that the phone had been found somewhere in Colombo, and it had been sold on many times, and they'd found it with somebody using it in Aurelia. But the point here is, which is excellent good work, and it shows that the system is in place. If you lose your phone, and if you know the IMEI number, you can report it to the TRC or through the police, and then they'll notify all the networks. And when the IMEI number comes up on the network, they'll inform the police station, and so the police will know at least who's using it, and then there's a process which you can get your phone back, which is very good news. However, the matter here is that my sources tell me that the network operator now claims that they don't have the call details for various telephone numbers connected with the inquiry. The network concerned apparently has maintained the position that they had informed the TRC that due to space limitations, or capacity limitations, they were unable to maintain the records as required by the TRC. Now, I want to make the point here that is you informing. But the TRC, as far as our sources have told us, have not agreed with that. So they've just left it on file. So it is clearly the capacity limits have been reached because that network's very popular. Well, in that case, they need to up their investment, in my view, and make sure that they have enough capacity to have all the records as legally obliged. If they can't do that, they need to close up and leave this country.
And how will this become a breakthrough in the investigation?
Well, I mean, to begin with, the JMO has to give some sort of order. Was this, is it an open verdict? Was this an unnatural killing? What was it? And why is this, well, now that we have a situation where the two JMOs are fighting with each other.
The former JMO, Dr. Ananda Samuel.
That's right.
He has issued a statement last week. Yeah.
And they seem to be fighting with each other. And the main focus, which is to try and find the perpetrators of this absolutely despicable action against a fellow human being, is being lost.
And Bangla, what do you think is still ahead in terms of Tajuddin's investigation?
I think people are talking. Still, I think it's to me a little bit of a media circus, a small circus. Lots of media attention, but nothing is happening. So I think some of these investigations, you don't have to, speak so much and go to the media. This is like we have discussed. It hurts the family. So let it be and come out with the results.
Correct.
Because I am totally against any trial by media, which is wrong. I mean, lots of people have suffered in the world because the media holds a trial. So let's certainly,
because right before elections, investigations took place, and there were a lot of developments that were taking place in Tajuddin's case.
Tajuddin, even Lasanta for how many years? Exactly, we have discussed. Even Mr. Kajaragama, so many years, but nothing has happened. And look at the families. Yeah. They suffer more. Every time they see the name, the face, the photographs. Even some other, the newspapers, I don't want to mention names, they put up posters. with Wasim Tajuddin's photograph.
And
and they capitalize.
Indeed.
So that's wrong.
Actually, talking about irresponsible reporting brings to my mind the somewhat unfortunate incident that happened to a former Miss Ceylon, to Angela Seniviratna some years ago. Angie was, her name and address had been used in the importation of some narcotics, and the level of publicity that was given, it was almost received wisdom that
and she lost her job.
Therefore, it irked her employer, a diplomatic mission in the country, who didn't wish to have any adverse or negativity associated with themselves, and she lost her job, affecting her entire livelihood was affected, all because the journalists and the newspapers reported it almost as though having passed judgment.
Yeah, that is wrong. The process takes place, and the media goes and convicts, and then when say if that person is innocent, you just get 3 lines.
Indeed.
That's what happened. A full page attack when you get 3 lines. These things have to change.
Indeed, they have to really.
And also, on Daily Mirror it says that Speaker has called for nominations for the Constitutional Council. First, if you can maybe give our viewers a small insight into what this Constitutional Council is going to be and how it's going to...
Well, it's got to be 10 members of it, and we have the Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, who are the ex-core, and they then have to choose, I think it's 2 members of Parliament, and the others would be made up from civil society.
There was a confusion earlier, right?
That's right.
With the civil society members.
There was always confusion.
The civil society, because I think the previous opposition objected to it.
That's right.
Some of the members.
That's right.
And also a new CM of the Western Provincial Council and the Northwestern Provincial Councils were appointed yesterday. So does this mean that until provincial councils are dissolved, they will act in the capacity of chief ministers, or will there be...
They've been, until the end of this, their current term, of that office, they shall function as chief ministers to replace, of course, these people who've won and now have become members of Parliament. So democracy is at work.
Democracy is at work. And also on Daily Mirror it says that Dulles grilled by Presidential Commission and Kehelia by FCID, United People's Freedom Alliance. MP Dallas Alaperimo was yesterday summoned to the President's Commission of Inquiry into large-scale corruption in connection with a complaint made of non-settlement of bills owed to a state-owned television channel.
Yes, it sounds, some of these matters sounds rather very political.
So far, yeah, because and then for years, you have to check, even though like the previous election.
Yeah.
So they said that the politicians were giving 100,000 to use of one of their vehicles.
That's right.
We haven't seen, the media or the people haven't seen the receipts, the payments. That has to be published.
That's
How many
right.
of them use official vehicles? Are we aware of it?
That's right. That's right.
That's the transparency. If these can be published, and then we can believe it. Otherwise, we don't know. It's all competing among themselves.
And we see here a situation where the FCID have completed, I think, around 20 matters, 20 cases or 20 files have been sent to the Attorney General's Department. And almost like MH370, the unfortunate Malaysian flight that went missing, there is a deafening silence from the AG's department. Again, I think the public wants to know what's going on. They need to know.
But now if CDA has taken a back seat, and then now we are all talking. It appears, and we talk of it's more the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. Now that has come into it. That's a lot of people are talking about that, not FCID.
Yes.
So and then that's the Presidential Commission, but then where FCID is, and it's more managed by the Prime Minister's office.
That's right. Well, some sort of committee associated with the PM's office. But we have a case where the FCID have been to court and they've named some officials whom they want to who they've named as suspects. The next stage for them to do is to have them in there and to investigate and question them.
What about the politicians? Are only officials or what?
And politicians too. However, what has happened in the recent past is that as soon as they get wind that they may be arrested, they trot along and file a fundamental rights application.
But again, for us, the way these have been happening, it's like a lot of, fanfare, drumming up there. I think we should have better procedures to have this.
Well, that's the thing, you see, Randula. Until the 7th of January, the United National Party and its allies appeared to have a file for everything and everyone. They, at one stage, had more files than I had.
Yeah.
Right?
Did they have a file on you?
They probably had a file on me as well. Right? And maybe you.
Never know.
Never know.
Well, Bandhu and Faz, before we wrap up, let's just touch upon this story as well, where Daily Mirror says Nilangadala has been elected Dewadane Nilame. Acting Dewadane Nilame Pradeep Nilangadala was yesterday re-elected as Dewadane Nilame of the Kandi Sri Dalada Maligaon with 205 votes at the election held at the Senkadagala Buddhist Center Auditorium. What would you like to say about it before we wrap up?
Well,
minutes left.
Mr. Dalal Bandara has been in the news for some of the wrong reasons and has been subject to various articles and so on, which lends to him somewhat controversial nature. And it's interesting, therefore, in that context, to see that he's been elected with
and
a
also
large number.
Former Dewadane Nilame, which I think he shouldn't have come. Niranjan Wijeratne also contested. He lost very badly. He shouldn't have tried. He served about 10 years.
Yes.
Then again it shows he wanted to contest and he lost very badly.
Yes, I'm trying to work out what the attraction is, and perhaps that is should be the subject of an article somewhere.
Well, it's something that we will certainly find out in the future. Well, before we wrap up, do you have the quote of the day?
Yes, I'd like to say that time is like a river. You can't touch the same water twice because the flow that has passed will never pass again. And on that note,
that's a wrap of this edition of Newsline. We meet you next week, this time, same place.